So, do you think that working within a Canadian context might have helped develop your work in a certain way, or given you a new perspective on things?
I think I'm not. I think that women's studies was more critical than the Canadian context in developing my thinking, but I think I thrived more in a Canadian context than I would have in a U.S. context.
Okay.
I think I'm more typically Canadian than typically American personality. Okay, if you talk about national images, I get along with people. I'm always saying I'm sorry. I'll negotiate anything. I'm worse at standing up and fighting for something than I am at working out some kind of solution for stuff. And also, I just felt much more comfortable in a smaller pond. And it was interesting because I didn't realize how chauvinistic I was. It was an unconscious chauvinism about being from the States until I came to Canada. And what it is I didn't realize how much I had the view that whatever is really important is happening here, i.e. the States. Okay? So, in terms of feminism, in terms of anti-war activity, I was a leftist in terms of politics all along, but the left, what's happening in the way of that, what's happening that's important for the whole world is happening here. And I really realized when I got to Canada that things were happening here and we didn't approach it with the same point of view. What's happening here is really important, maybe for the rest of the world, certainly for us. Mm-hmm. But I was more comfortable with being a bigger fish in a smaller pond. And it's less competitive, I think, just because there are fewer of us. Yeah. Certainly academics compete with each other in Canada. But somehow you can't be the really big cheese if you're Canadian. Some Canadians are, but that's an attitude, that's a feeling. So, CPA's always ignoring, the Section 35 is kind of, Sandra sets up the thing and then Division 35 kind of ignores it, right? So we kind of fall off again. And that has its problems, but it really provided me a nourishing environment. SWAP, CPA was smaller. I was there at the start in terms of feminist psychology and women's studies. I could sort of know everybody. Yeah. So I don't know I think I fit better in Canada. And I think I thrived more in Canada than I would have in the States. It's harder to say what's distinctively Canadian, but I think that's something that is kind of distinctively Canadian. You know, if you live and work in Canada, this is not where it's at. Where it's at is in the States. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that in a negative way at all. But you know that in a way you do not know it if you're American. It's like the oppressor doesn't understand. The person in power doesn't understand what the subordinate is feeling because you don't have to look at it. Yeah. It's, Trudeau's thing about the elephant. Mm-hmm. and you're very aware if you're little and you're next to the elephant.